Hey all, for those of you who are new here to the channel, I am Shannon Wells. I am a life and business coach for Christians, and I equip them with the tools they need to take their power back. So over the last couple of days or so, the Lord had been speaking to me about purpose versus comfort. And he's been specifically speaking to me about these two things, purpose and comfort, because a lot of times when we do things throughout our life, when we make decisions based off of comfort. But what God began to show me is that for every single one of you, for every single believer, and I would go as far to say every single person, there's going to come a moment in life where you are going to have a divine encounter with God. And from thenceforth on, after that divine encounter with God, there's going to come another moment, I can't talk today, in life where you're going to have to make a decision. And this decision is so hard. You're going to have to make a decision where you have to choose between your purpose and comfort. You're going to have to choose between, do you want to stay comfortable? Do you want to do what's comfortable? Do you want to make decisions that matches your comfort level? Do you want to stay within your comfort zone? I was talking a lot in the last video about your comfort zone. Or do you want to follow purpose? And it's very specific that you choose between purpose and comfort. You can't skate in between, because there's going to come a moment where you have to choose one or the other. And purpose, following your purpose, it doesn't always mean that it's going to be comfortable. If you just look around you and you see how people are in life, you see the decisions they've made in life, a lot of people have a life based off of choosing comfort. But if you want to choose purpose, if you want to follow purpose, your divine purpose, this is the thing that God has called you to do before the day that you were born. This is the assignment that God has placed on your life for your season, or this season in your life, right? If you decide to follow purpose, then you immediately separate yourself from the crowd. You immediately become set apart, right? The word of God tells us that we're supposed to come out from among them and be ye separate. You immediately make yourself, or you immediately allow God, let me rephrase that, to set you apart from the rest, because you're following God's purpose for your life. You're following God's perfect will for your life. And not everyone has the courage. It takes courage and it takes bravery to follow God's will for your life, because it's not easy, right? This is why the Lord tells us that it's a path and it's a race of endurance. You have to have endurance within you. You have to have long suffering within you. It's not easy and it's not comfortable. Comfortable is definitely not something that it is 100% all the time. But if you look around you, if you just look around you in friendship groups and relationships, people at your job, people in your family, just people general, you see a world where people have chosen comfort over purpose, right? But when you choose purpose over comfort, the road may be rocky, right? It may be hard, but you'll end up in a place where you have stepped into the promised land that God has called for you, right? You'll end up in a place where everything is just flowing because you're moving with God's spirit, right? You'll end up in a place where you will receive the promises of God, right? It reminds me of the story of Sarah, Isaac, and Jacob, right? I believe it's, I have it wrong, right? Sarah, Isaac, and Abraham. I'm so sorry about that. But in Ishmael, and it reminds me of that story because they chose comfort over purpose, right? God had came to them beforehand and told them that they were going to have a son, and it was going to be their promised child, and nations were going to be born from him, right? But they were getting tired of waiting, right? They were getting tired of being uncomfortable. Sarah was barren. She was getting tired of being uncomfortable. And so she chose comfort over purpose. She knew that her purpose was to have a child because God told her that it would happen, right? He told Abraham that it would happen, right? But she chose comfort over purpose because she pushed them to have a child, which is Ishmael, through Hagar. But it was comfortable for her to do the thing that was normal in society, right? When you look around again and you see people doing the things that are normal in society, you see people doing things that are comfortable, because it takes bravery, it takes patience, it takes strength, it takes faith, right? It takes a certain kind of mental strength, right? A certain kind of emotional strength to wait on the Lord and have faith that he's going to follow through and he's going to do the thing that he said he was going to do, even though you're working and you don't see any results, even though you're doing things and you don't see the Lord with your physical eye moving in your life. It takes a certain kind of mental strength and emotional strength to know that a doubt that God is still moving in your life, even when it doesn't look like it to the physical eye. It takes so much strength to do that, and not everybody is mentally and emotionally strong enough to understand and know that God is moving on their behalf, even if it doesn't look like it, right? So they choose comfort instead. They choose things that feel great in the moment. They choose comfort instead. But there's gonna come, I don't want this to go too long, but there's gonna come a moment in time, if you haven't already got there, where you're gonna have to choose purpose over comfort. And it's not to say that choosing comfort is bad, but it is to say that you may miss out on the promises of God, right? And there are people who like to preach that you can never miss out on the promises of God. But I'm going to come here to tell you that we see throughout biblical history where it's happened over and over again, right? It's happened over and over again to the people who have came through the wilderness, right? They came out of Egypt into the wilderness. Yes, God kept his promise and he brought the Israelites into the promised land, but there were many of the Israelites that did not make it into the promised land. As a people, they made it, but a lot of them that were within the people group died in the wilderness, right? They didn't make it over because they spent so much time choosing comfort. They wanted to go back to Egypt, to what was comfortable. They wanted to go back to that mindset of slavery and bondage because it's all they knew. It was what was comfortable to them or for them in that season, and they just couldn't let go of it, right? They were saying, we have meat and fish to eat back in Egypt. They didn't want the bread that God was raining down from heaven for them to eat in the wilderness. They chose comfort over purpose. Their purpose was to go and take hold of the promised land, but they wanted to choose comfort, which is where they were back in Egypt. There's going to come a moment in time where you have to choose purpose over comfort. And it doesn't mean that comfort is bad all the time. It just means that you're going to miss out on the promises of God.